All right, we're live. Welcome to the Crypto Mining Tools podcast, and I'm your host, Scott Offord. And over here is Ethan.
Hello, hi everybody. And down here we've got Steve.
Steve Barbour.
Steve Barbour.
Yeah, just like, hair cutters.
Barbour.
Yeah, Barbour.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Barbour.
I was hoping it was going to be a little bit more sexy or something.
No.
Aren't you? You're in Canada, right?
Yeah. I'm in a unique city in Canada. I think apparently we're the only city that's on the border between provinces. That's our claim to fame.
Oh.
We're barely actually a city. It's more of a small town. But about 25,000 people, Lloydminster. So it straddles Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
I'm from Twin Cities myself. It's Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and then there's Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, which is on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So, we used to go across the border all the time and to get gas and milk or whatever, depending on the exchange rate. When I was growing up,
or healthcare.
Cigarettes,
and beer.
Well, and that was the interesting thing because in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, I think the drinking limit was 19, and in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, it was 21. So a lot of the people from the college over there would come to Canada because I was raised in Canada, but interesting. So between Alberta and Saskatchewan. Okay.
Yeah, so we're basically in the prairies, like Western Canada. So it's all agriculture and oil out here, basically.
Okay. Do you ever get like an East Coast, West Coast fight thing going on? Like Saskatchewan is the best. No, Alberta is the best.
Albertans and Saskatchewanites or whatever they call them. They get along really well.
Okay. This is Canada.
The fighting is usually between like West Coast and East Coast. So like Alberta and Saskatchewan will team up against the East Coast. Funny thing is I'm from the East Coast. I'm from, I actually grew up in Newfoundland. So I'm from a more liberal side of the country versus now I live out here in a very conservative side of the country. So it's fun. I have some fun arguments with my family these days.
Interesting. So yeah, what the heck are you doing all the way up there?
I moved out here in 2011. Was basically just working in oil, right? So I had graduated mechanical engineering and came up here to. Actually, my first job was a production engineer. So I was basically responsible for like servicing oil wells, optimizing oil wells, like just working with the operators and stuff like that. Really cool job. I miss it in some ways because it's a very competitive job. It's actually a lot like Bitcoin mining because, in Bitcoin mining, we're all trying to like maximize uptime, maximize hash rate. Just it's competitive. It's just naturally very, very competitive. And that's what that job was like too. I would just be competing against like my peers at the oil company, trying to get more production than they can and beat my budget, it's the same kind of deal. So it's funny because Bitcoin mining has a lot of parallels with like producing oil. It's very similar. It's all part of the energy industry, I guess. But I moved out here for that, and then I switched roles at that same company and was doing facilities engineering.
Okay.
So then that specific role was more about. I had some major projects like big horizontal pads that we were building, and so I'd work with the engineering firm on the design and then getting it built and all that stuff, and then we'd hand it back over to production. But I had some cool projects too where like it was just sort of more maintenance style projects with facilities, like any random thing that needed to be fixed or upgraded or an operator needed something new, they come to our group and then we would sort of figure out what the problem was and try to come up with the best solution, right? So I guess my experience prior to what I am doing now, which is obviously Bitcoin mining, and my company obviously is a Bitcoin mining service provider. I think it all I was well fit for this, like before I got into it, especially because I obviously target oil field mainly. So all my experience is pretty relevant to that. So
Yeah. So you so 11 years ago, you said you got into the oil industry.
Well, it's 2011,
Okay.
so not
Okay, 2011.
not quite. Yeah, yeah, that's when I graduated and started. I mean, I had co-op positions before that in oil field, so I've been technically working in oil field since about 2008.
And so how did you get into Bitcoin then?
Yeah. Tell us about how that translates into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't really have, let's say, like an interesting entry story into Bitcoin, but um, I think I just discovered it on Reddit. The interesting part of my story was just I was, at least for me, it was interesting. I had just quit my job. I quit it. I had quit in the middle of like, well, the oil was still hurting a lot back in 2015, 2016.
It's
I
hurting a lot
quit.
now.
No, it's even worse now. Like it was bad then too. It's even worse now. And Canadian oil is easily the worst it's ever been in history. So it's a very tough time to be in the oil and gas industry right now. But uh, yeah, I left that role, and I was actually the reason I left that job. And it was a weird time because nobody was quitting their jobs at this time because there were so many people out of work. But I was doing all these patents for this oil company because I'm really interested in like downhole tools, like oil tools and stuff, like mainly for production tools.
Hmm.
And I was pursuing that career where I sort of partly learned and was coached by a YouTube channel on how to um, sort of. It's not that I sort of found this channel after I pursued this path, but it was about like how to pursue a path in like inventing and like patenting and licensing.
Okay.
And that was a career path I was on. And I ended up doing. I have like a laundry list of oil tools I want to get to the market, but I ended up getting in that time frame between 2016 and 2017, and partly in 2018 because I had started Upstream Data, but I was also doing this other stuff on the side. I
Hmm.
got two products that I guess invented and patented and licensed. Um, so that was the career path I was going down. And the way I got into Bitcoin was while I was pursuing that, uh, I had a period of time in which I quit the company with no prospects because I had to quit in order to
Hmm.
do it on my own. They wouldn't let me do it through the company. So I had no prospects, and that's when I had more downtime. So I don't even know what triggered it, but I think Bitcoin at that time, it was mid 2016. It was starting to go up a bit, so it was getting a
Sure.
bit more, uh, getting a bit more publicity online, and so that then
Hmm.
I see this Bitcoin thing again. People are talking about it. Like, okay, what is Bitcoin? Like, and then you just obviously jump down that rabbit hole, and then like, oh, well, fuck, this is really sorry if I can't swear on your pod. I wasn't sure, but I swear a lot. I'm from Newfoundland. I'm from uh, we swear like sailors. So
We get it.
uh,
We get it.
I'll try to tone that down. Um, where was I going? I don't know, but yeah, I got into the Bitcoin thing, and oh yeah, it just sort of made sense for me right away because I didn't even know what Bitcoin was, obviously, but like Bitcoin mining, it's like, oh, someone should do that in oil field, and at the time didn't seem like anyone was, so I just went out and tried it.
Tell us, what are the exciting things that you're doing today?
Yeah, a couple exciting things I've planned. I mean, the exciting things for me is just like new products, like getting new stuff out. Exciting as far as like Bitcoin mining goes. Some people find that exciting, some people not. I mean, it to some degree, it's pretty unexciting. Like all we're doing is plugging computers in, right? Like it's
Hmm.
not that exciting. But uh,
Well, if
I,
you
you
put
know,
it
I,
that way, yeah. I'm going to pull up your website here.
Yeah.
yeah, you can even while I'm talking, like if you bring up like the products and services and data centers, like I've gone through a lot of different iterations. Like the first thing I built, which I'm still running right now, I basically over designed the first one I built, and it's been running amazingly. But it's over designed and big, much higher cost than what it needs to be. Like for example, the first thing I built is like in that bottom left there, that combo data center.
Hmm.
Like it's just a modified CCAN with a genset in it. So that's like the old version, and I got a new version I'm coming out with right away. But that's basically what the first one I ever built looks like, and then I built some more that way. So I guess since this is a mining tools podcast, I guess I'll talk more about the products, I guess. But
Yeah.
I mean, the way this obviously works, if it's not clear, there's a man door you see in the front with the fans, and that's the data center side, right? So you just walk in there, and that's where all your electrical and networking and everything is. And that's the only way to enter that side of the building. And then there's in the middle, there's the way I designed these ones, which I'm getting away from, but like I said, I've iterated a lot, but in these ones, like in the middle, there's just a steel grating, which is breathable, and it's got just a hog's hair filter, and you can put other filter media over it. So that separates the engine side from the data center side. And so the whole concept is like, especially when you're deploying for oil field, at least the way we like our strategy is, like, I try to design stuff that I can just ship to whoever the customer is, and they can operate it without needing us. So part of it is like, I want to isolate the data center from the engine room, because if it's our data center, for example, you can't have anyone just be able to walk in there. Normally in oil field, buildings are usually unlocked, unless it's a certain facility. But if it's just a small well site, like, usually buildings are unlocked. So, and if I need to call a mechanic or something and it's 3 hours away, he's got to be able to get in there and do work. So that's why the engine's in a completely separate room that's unlocked, which is just the other side of the sea can. And you can see the exhaust sticking out. And I have the thing on the roof is actually a vent hood. It's how I push the engine heat out of the unit.
Okay.
Or you can, the way I designed this one, it's only really for Canadian climates, which are cooler. But the point was that, like, the engine heat would recirculate, in the winter.
and keep the temperature stable.
Yeah, like the first time I did this, especially, I was really walking into it completely blind. Like, the only thing I had to go off of at the time, I was designing this first one in 2016, and so the only resource I had at the time, at least because I wasn't as well connected, like, I don't know guys like you at that point, right? So I was just going on Bitcoin Talk forums and just seeing what the design constraints are. Like, I wasn't sure. I did a lot of things. Like, I wasn't sure, like, okay, when it gets cool, is there a risk of condensation on the walls? Will it drip into the ASICs? All kinds of stuff like that. And so, like, I mitigated all those risks. Probably, like, I even put in, like, this propane furnace in case like there was no power because it was shut down. And then I needed to keep it warm, so it switched automatically to this this inherently safe propane furnace design, where there, like, none of the spark was in the building.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like, all kinds of weird stuff like that I implemented in the prototype and never used. All kinds of things I did to over design things, but I guess the upside of doing it that way, and I generally do that anyway. Like, the first time I'll build a unit, I'll over design it. I'll do a little more. Like, the first one I sent to Texas, for example, I wasn't really sure. Like, I'd never operated in that climate, so I just went crazy with oversizing the fans, because I was like, I cannot risk not having enough airflow, so it just went too much, right?
Yeah, that's usually the biggest gripe is, is there going to be enough airflow to get the heat out?
Yeah. And people have all kinds of different concerns. Like, one common concern I get is, like, should you put reflective coating on the outside building and stuff, like, to push away the sun's radiant heat, right? But usually it's like, not really. There's so much airflow, it doesn't matter. But you get all kinds of different concerns. But that's part of just doing it. You just go out and do it and see what works.
And then what was your next one? After that prototype, what did you do there?
Yeah. What's the evolution?
I did that first prototype, and then I did a few more just improved versions. So, like, I made the electrical system a little more efficient, like cost efficient, etc. And so I did more of those CCAN style. So I got a few of those out there. And then the next one basically was the next one was a custom one shown on the bottom right. Actually, that one I sent to Texas.
Okay.
that's like not a standard product that's shown there. It's just, yeah, it just links you to, like, if someone wants a custom build. That one was cool because they wanted an option where they could use our gen sets, but not, they didn't want to buy it all at once. They just wanted to try it. And it was on a stranded gas well. They wanted to try it small, start small, and then have it so they can plug in more engines. And so I did that one. I designed that one so that you can see the 6 plugs on the side there, those blue plugs. So every engine plugs in independently. And I just wanted
is that where the gas goes, or?
No, the gas goes to the engine. So that's just the data center.
Oh, okay.
The way that data center is designed, there's a control system that's watching all of the engines. And there's one engine that's a primary engine that runs the fans. So I wanted to make it user friendly. And this is where, like, certain things like this, I probably, just because of the cost, I could do it cheaper, but like those plugs are expensive, for example.
Oh yeah.
But
they're like a few $100 each, aren't they?
Oh yeah, no, those plugs were like $1,500 each.
Oh, okay.
Ridiculous.
What are they? What are they called? What are these ones called?
Those are Meltrick. They're Meltrick. You can get like a cheaper version, but at the time that was what I found. But it was also the customer wanted a certain design, so that I gave them a few options, and that's what they ended up going with. Yeah. But it is a really good system. I think it was really well done in how it works. Because I did it, they're all independent circuits, so they're not paralleled engines. The control system manages it, so like if the primary engine goes down, it'll shut down the other engines, because if the primary goes down, then the fans go down, right? It's very rare for that to happen, and it's just a safety feature.
So is there some sort of like, big parts catalog that you can thumb through and you can find these things? Because I Google for this kind of stuff all the time online, and I can't find anywhere that would sell things like this, or this kind of like industrial grade stuff. So how do you even go about, sourcing this kind of stuff?
Same as you, man. Like, I've spent so many hours, like, for example, looking for exhaust fans that, like, I was happy with, that I wanted to have as a standard. And I think I'm there, but like, it's even, you know how it is too. If you build something, you're like, oh, if you find something, if you come across something that's a little cheap, you're like, well, okay, well, now maybe I'll switch everything over to this. Right. But I guess, was that a question?
Cool. Yeah, it says, how do you keep your ASICs warm enough in the Canadian winter? Charles Spears
in the Canadian winter, yeah. So, well, let me give you an example. Go to the mini cubes in that website.
Okay.
So the mini cube, I can give you two examples here.
Which one?
The easy way to do it is like in the combo unit.
The one furthest to the left.
Yeah, the mini cube's furthest to the left there. Before I just talk about this, the combo unit, that was solved with just the engine heat, right? The engine preheated all the air, and then you can control the engine air circulation just with this manual louver. So in the cold weather, you just let the engine heat blow into the unit. In this one, there is no engine, right? It's the smallest data center I could possibly figure out how to build. It's a 4-foot cube.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as you can see, they're meant to be stacked if you need them. So it's just meant to be very modular. That cube is designed for the commodity engine that we sell, like the 5.7 liter small block, which is like the most common oil filled engine in history, right? So that's why I designed it that size. Now, in terms of how do you keep your ASICs cool, or he asked, how do you keep them warm, right? Is that what he said?
Yeah. How do you keep them warm through the cold Canadian winters?
So this has been so this cube is our first winter we had going with these cubes, because I didn't have them last winter. I just I built the first one last summer. So my plan for recirculating the heat was just the first idea, like plan A, was just I had the fan on a VFD, a small VFD. And
now, what is a VFD? I know it's an acronym for something.
Variable frequency drive.
Okay.
So like a 3-phase motor, you can control the speed and even overspeed it with a VFD.
Okay.
So there's a small VFD in each of these running that fan, and I've gotten away from that, which I can get into. But the idea is that I was just going to slow the fan down, right? And then the ASICs are pushing the same airflow, so they're going to just recirculate.
Sure.
And that was plan A, to see if that would work. Didn't work that well because A, there's huge temperature swings. B, there's not really any ideal placement of the temperature sensor in the cube that gives you a good idea of what's hot and what's not.
Yeah, because in the very middle it can be super hot, but on the outer edges it could be almost freezing.
And you wouldn't think it, but like even in that little cube, like there's a lot of weird dynamics going on how the air is flowing. So it didn't work that well. Like I could slow the VFD down. It would help a bit, but it wouldn't. Like ideally, you don't want to be like mining like minus 20 degrees C. You want to be mining at maybe no more than -5, but hopefully above zero, right?
Yeah.
Above zero, above freezing. So I was trying to keep things above freezing, but honestly, I couldn't really do it. So my plan B was I built a small tin, call it like a plenum, that just goes over the fan and reroutes the heat back to the intake, sort of what you see some other container guys do. That worked okay, but overall, I wasn't really satisfied with it. So I just found that I guess certainly with S9s, we didn't generally have a lot of problems running them. Some we did, that they have trouble just cold starting and stuff.
Yeah.
So there was just a bit more manual intervention, but the ducting works okay. But that's why with those cubes, like the next product, I guess I can show you the iteration now. The next product is just the hash hut, is really how I solve this problem, hopefully for good. Because you want to get rid of the heat.
Hut. That sounds like a kind of place you would like party on the weekend, like the hash hut.
Fuck yeah.
Well, there's a door big enough to get in,
right?
Yeah.
I'm unapologetic in terms of how I brand, because like I've had people, like just friends and stuff, and like people try to give me constructive criticism about not branding as like solely Bitcoin mining, right? Because if you look at my website, all I talk about is Bitcoin. I don't talk about what a lot of guys will do, and it's probably good marketing is just to say like we just do data centers and we do computations or we do cloud computing, right? They don't say we're into Bitcoin and that's all we do, but I'm like unapologetically a Bitcoiner, so I do that.
No, I love it.
So, well, honestly, I just think I'm playing the long game. Like I think society will continue and is coming around to Bitcoin. I can tell you, like the oil field is coming around to Bitcoin big time compared to the conversations I had in like 2016 versus now. It's crazy. It's completely different. So like like you putting that word like hash in there, I've had a lot of my friends in oil field be like, why are you calling it hash? They're going to think it's like a marijuana grow off, right? But
well, if Bitcoin ever, whatever.
And hey, Bitcoin goes to nothing. Like, yeah, exactly. Convert it over.
We can make that hash hut a real hash hut.
Absolutely. And some people call it a sauna. I don't know why that looks like a sauna.
Oh,
I guess some saunas
I can see that.
Saunas look like that. I don't know.
I wouldn't want to touch the sides though. I mean, with my bare arm.
Oh yeah, on a sunny day, no way. That's a whole bunch of nope from me.
Throw some more rocks in there.
Yeah. That's built out of like. So we just build the buildings in our shop, but it's galvanized tin in that case. We can do like any color too, because we just sell to guys that just brand it themselves.
Oh yeah.
So the cool thing about this, about the heat management, like I'm hoping this is my last iteration in terms of just heat management. The idea here is that I wanted to come up with a good way to recirculate the heat. So, most container designs, not all of them, but most of them have this sort of standard unidirectional airflow. Air just comes in one side, out the other. And so it makes it, there's ways you can recirculate the heat, but I haven't seen anything to me that looks like it's very reliable, that works very well. Especially when it's like, when I park these things in the prairies, there's really, I can't imagine a worse environment. Like it blows just constant hard wind, extremely cold. If you try to recirculate the heat, like over the top or the unit or something, if it has any chance to blow away, it will. So not to say that problem's completely solved here, but the way I solve it is you just put a weather hood that you point on each fan and you can point it up or down. So if you want the heat to blow back into it in the winter, It's just a manual. The weather hood pushes it straight down at the intakes. The intakes are on low on each side.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this too is, like, you'll find in the winter, especially in Canada, well, there's a few other issues. Like, you'll get frost clog off your intakes, and this solves that because it blows a heat rate at the intake. And then also the biggest problem, the flaw of the cubes that I build, and I explain this to the customers. You got to be very careful. Like, it's not as dummy proof as you could say, I guess I could say, as this is, because if the site operator, who's managing the data center, even though he's just doing it for the company and he hasn't bought it or nothing, he might not really know what he's really doing, aside from, if I tell him, I need you to check this breaker and like flip it, right? But if he opens the door and of the cube, so I'm talking about the cube now, if he opens the door, which is also where the air comes in, and leaves it open for an extended period of time, or does it when he shouldn't, like if it's snowing out, it'll suck snow right through and short your ASICs.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
So that's the downside of the cube is, or any real data center design, is you got to make sure the operators know what they're doing. So I wanted to make something a little more dummy proof, and I think that's what this hash hut is, because if you're going to open that building, you're really just going to enter it and do your work inside. Whereas the cubes have a really good application, and we're seeing a lot of good use cases, but it's just a little less dummy proof. And that's what I want to get away from.
Yeah.
So the cubes, for example, I'm more so targeting warmer climates, and the hash huts for sort of
colder,
hash huts are
more
actually
extreme.
Yeah, they're basically all purpose, but especially for my Canadian guys, like, it's mostly the hash huts are what I'm quoting recently.
Yeah, and so this says it has a water curtain add-on and soundproofing add-on. I'm sure that the soundproofing has been something that people have asked for.
Not actually, because most of my target audience, right, is oil field. And
Right.
with
Okay.
that, the Bitcoin mine's like the quietest thing on the site.
Yeah, right.
Well, it depends, right? Like, it really is just all about application, and a lot of sites, they're close to landowners, and so they have to be a lot more conscious about decibels. I think the soundproofing is pretty easy. Like, we just soundproof it the same way we soundproof gen sets and everything else. Like,
Sure.
You can add sound boxes and stuff to it, which is pretty easy to do with this design. The water curtains, we don't actually supply them, but you could just mount a water curtain pretty easily to it. So it's just another feature where it's pretty easy to implement.
Yeah.
But again, we haven't used water curtains in oil field, and it's also a lot more challenging because you're going through water. So who's replenishing that? Like,
where's the water going to come from, and what's the clean level of the water? And
it's not. Yeah, it's something that would be something maybe someone just in the right application could look at, but for most of our oil field guys, like, it's probably not going to fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see all your different designs and your different builds. Definitely in my time working with Scott, I've seen a lot of people, kind of address a lot of different issues and a lot of challenges, and you seem to have the most versatile solutions that I've seen around. Would you consider yourself kind of a one-stop shop? Like, are you able to do everything from end to end, or are you just mostly focusing on the boxes?
Well, the kind of sort of our offer to producers, like, my main clients are oil producers, right? Like, I do get a lot of inquiries from just pure Bitcoin miners, wanting quotes, wanting hosting, etc. But certainly in the past, like, I've done a lot to improve our cost basis on all of our stuff. So I think I'm actually at the point now where I can competitively offer like a utility miner, like a solution, like a data center package. Whereas even a year ago, most of my stuff was just best suited for oil field. So, because even a year ago, like, the amount of growth I've had in the last year, I was still just a one-man show a year ago, and I finally, like, I've had enough sales and stuff to start bringing people in and expanding business. But I guess my pitch to producers is, like, when you go talk with oil producers about this stuff, And we've been talking with most of the big guys in Canada, at least. Almost like it's rare for them to care about holding Bitcoin, for example, and wanting Bitcoin. Like they don't want it, they don't want to touch it. So
Sure.
so in terms of the kind of service we offer, like I do offer a full turnkey service. Like we do the gen sets, I build them in house. Like I don't obviously manufacture them, but I assemble them in house.
Sure.
We do that up to like 400 kilowatt right now, because that seems to be where most of the demand is. And then so I was saying, for the oil producer, a lot of them have their own gen set. So I go after those guys mainly because it's all about cost, right? Like what's the investment cost, what's the payout? If you have stranded gas 1, idle engines 2, all you need is a Bitcoin mine. It's pretty easy. It's much easier to sell, right? But we do the full deal. Like I'll build the gen sets in our shop. Usually most of the gen sets we're building are like these 50 kilowatt small blocks, right?
Okay.
But that's just where the demand is. But we build the data centers in house, like in our shop, and then obviously the ASICs we just get from wherever we get a good price and just package it together. But when it comes to the customer, we offer, it's pretty basic, really. Like I set them up with a mining pool. It's usually like slush pool because these guys are noobs and they just want a pool that has nice UI, right? UX. Whereas, if you put them on something like CK pool or like one of the, where you're just getting some JSON data, like they're not that keen on that. But basically, like I don't hold anyone's Bitcoins for them, or at least I will do it for like up to a period of like 1 or 2 months, because some of our customers don't want to touch it, so we have to hold it and liquidate it for them. Okay. And that's how I get them to because that's always a big question is, if you're an engineer at a big oil company, like you can make the sale on, okay, we can buy this package, it's going to cost this much, this is a cost benefit, like the revenue, the payout, it looks pretty decent. What you're not going to usually sell your management on is like who's going to manage the Bitcoin for the company, right? Because it comes with a lot. It's very slippery, right? Like it, you know how it is. What if you get hacked? Like prove it,
right?
So prove that you didn't steal it, right? So what we do is this: I give them that extra option where I say, look, we'll just buy your Bitcoin for market rate. So any point they want to sell it, they don't have to go to an exchange. We just buy it off them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I liquidate it.
Make it easy. Yeah.
It's nice to have the capital laying around to do that too.
Well, to be quite honest,
at his discretion.
No, I liquidate it no matter what, but we just buy it and sell it. So it's already in my possession usually, because they're mining to our wallet, but they have the account, and we just liquidate it. We have contracts set up with these guys, but with the smaller guys, I find smaller producers, and even like we've sold to some I guess you can call it competitors, but like other companies that build and service gen sets, for example, who are like, we got no work right now. We need a way to diversify right now and offer customers a reason to use our gen sets. So there's a couple gen set suppliers locally here, sort of like just within a couple hours radius of us, that we build data centers for. And for them though, they're more they're smaller and they're more willing to handle their own Bitcoin. They just do all that. So I just sell them a data center, just like any other, any products supplier. I just help them keep it optimized.
Yeah, it's a very cool niche.
Yeah. Steve, of all the stranded resources people I've had the pleasure of talking to, you're the only one that makes it sound like it's easy.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, we just got the hash box and put a couple hash boxes and they got a gen set ready to go. We plug them in. All the Bitcoin goes in my wallet. I cash it out for them. No big deal.
Whatever.
Like everybody else makes it in this huge, really technical, difficult, almost impossible situation. But you're the only one that seems to make it easy.
Talking about making it easy.
About making it easy. That's what Scott and I intend to do for the industry with our website, Crypto Mining Tools. Crypto Mining Tools is meant to be your one-stop resource for all information regarding crypto. However, we do not do private tutorials. So if you have some strange or obscure hardware or software, we don't do tutorials or support that. You will need to reach out to the vendor and contact them to get support. But if you're wanting basic information such as calculations on profitabilities of the different miners out there, we have that available. And we have what we think is, I don't mean to brag, but we think it's the best calculator out there. Why? Because it considers all the different factors and variables that other calculators are not considering. And we're constantly making improvements to it. We're constantly tweaking the algorithm, and we're constantly tweaking the graphic user interface. I don't want to give away anything, but stay tuned. In about 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to see some changes to the graphic user interface. We want to make it very, very easy for people to understand what these calculations are doing, how they're working over time, and not just see in numbers, because sometimes that can be hard for people. And then we have our comparison app here, where you can compare the different miners and miners that you're considering to buy. You can see how they rank and how they stack up to other miners, and then go to the next.
Nope, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, and then our next app is the shop app. So once you know what miners you're interested in purchasing, you can go to our shop. Now we're doing a major overhaul here, so don't be spooked away if you don't see an inventory available. That's going to change very soon, where we're going to create an entire user role and client relationship management system on the back end. It's almost done. It's being tested right now. That will hopefully keep fresh inventory constantly going into our system, so you've always got a chance to buy the latest miners and the hottest miners, and even the miners. Let's say you have free electricity. Apparently everybody that I talk to that has questions on the site, they have free electricity. So you have an opportunity to get used miners at a really, really deep discount. And then last but not least, and I think this is where our guest Steve kind of ties in here. Let's say you buy a hash box, from Steve, and he's got it all set up for you, and you're stranded. The price of oil, the price of gas, everything, it tanks, and it falls through, and you're stuck now. You don't have a contract. You don't have a place to do it. On our hosting directory listing, you can find a power purchase agreement. You can find active power purchase agreements in North America. And we're expanding every day, and you can go back and you can save the entire deal, because Steve, he's going to work hard. He's going to build that hash box for you, and whether or not you have the power, that's on you. But we have a resource that can help you get that power and help you acquire that. Another very useful tool here, and Scott loves this, is let's say you want to know how many miners you need to use a certain power. So let's say you have a 0.5 megawatt of power that is available, but you have no clue. You don't want to sit down all day on a calculator adding, wattages, trying to figure out how many S17s do I need to get a 0.5 megawatt. On our website, you can literally go in here, you can choose the miner that you want to mine with, and you can adjust the quantity until it shows you exactly how much power that you want to use. It's a pretty cool tool. It's pretty nifty.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, Ethan. So back to you, Steve.
I need to hire you, Ethan, to show my stuff, man. It's professional.
Hey!
I like the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Well, Ethan's
just let me know.
He's very proud of this. It started out as my baby, but then he took it over, and he's taken a lot off my plate. It's been awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Steve, Bitcoin mining, oil fields, it's all crazy stuff. So one thing we haven't talked about, and we gotta wrap it up pretty quick though, but
sure.
My one question to you is, the people that are buying this stuff from you, are they doing it really, like you said, to get into Bitcoin, or is it more that flare mitigation? Or
most of our sales is certainly, there's certainly plenty of guys that are doing it to get into Bitcoin, but most of them are doing it to solve a problem, which is stranded gas usually. Stranded, or I like to call it liability gas, but like stranded gas wells, vented gas, and flared gas. So reducing, in some cases we've completely eliminated the flares, In other cases, just depending on the nature of the facility, that's going to be a lot harder to do. Especially in a lot of facilities, flares are not. They're also critical as a safety feature to have that flame continuously burning for upset conditions, right? So there's different needs, but most of our clients, because 99% of our clients are oil field, they have a need, and it's usually to mitigate. So when they, for example, when there's several examples I could give you, but like one common one is in Canada, you're not allowed to vent too much gas, and if you do, especially the guys, well, a lot of guys do and just don't tell anyone, right? But
that's what I do. If I vent too much gas, I'm just like, smeller's the feller, not me.
Don't say.
we're not supposed to talk about farts on this podcast.
I was just talking about venting gas, man.
That's the other podcast.
This is where I like these podcasts to go, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of benefits, like, if they have, because there's several cases where we deployed units and the only reason they're allowed to start their well up is because we were on their site. So cases like that, because we're putting them into compliance with the regulations.
Wow.
Now, smaller guys don't give a shit. Like, not to paint them all with the same brush, but generally, if they can just get away with doing nothing, like just venting, they'll keep doing it. But it's just how it is, right? They just don't want to go bankrupt, right? So
sure, yeah.
But and then, like, of course, stranded gas wells, we get a lot more calls, especially recently. I don't know exactly why, but I'm getting a lot more calls from guys just with stranded gas wells. And I think they're just hearing, because, I think you guys have seen it too. I certainly have seen, like, the narrative around Bitcoin mining in oil field has been boosted a lot in the last, like, year and a half.
Yeah, sure.
2 years ago and 2.5 years ago, it was like no cold calls, right? Like, it was just,
there's an uphill battle.
Very, very much so.
Yeah. Steve, I hate to leave it there. You've been awesome. Can you let our audience know what's a good way for them to reach out to you? Because I'm sure things are really changing for you.
Yeah, just like always, Twitter is the best way to reach out if it's just to say hi or whatever. If it's my Twitter is @SGBarbour, BARBOUR. And if it's more serious, like it's more about like sales and data centers, just email sales@upstreamdata.ca.
Okay. All right. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that here in the
comments section. In the comments here.
So Steve on Twitter. Okay, right there. SG Barbour. Just Barbour.
It's all shit posts. It's nothing, no quality posts. It's just garbage, but feel free to follow me there.
No way. No, I when I read your tweets, it's always about how Bitcoin is the best. And, you definitely seem like a maximalist. And I've seen you get some pretty good retweets and comments and likes, and you got some good stuff going on Twitter.
I am and I'm not a maximalist. I guess it depends how they define it, but definitely I'm very, very pro BTC, as they say.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again for coming on our show. It was good chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit better.
Thanks a lot.
No, for sure. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Great to meet you.
See you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.